minutes. So, and I'm basically going to condense a book that will be out next year, 365 pages, into 20 minutes. Okay, so, and that means I'm from New York also, so I may be talking too fast at some point, just so you know. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually take you through what is customer engagement, but also what companies have to do to prepare for it and then to execute against it too, because ultimately it is the core, let's call it the core approach to how you're actually going to be able to both acquire and then retain your customers, and it's really critical. But in order to do that, we have to set a context for it. And the context comes from this standpoint. In the last 10, 12 years, I'm sure you think we had a business revolution. We didn't. We had a communications revolution in the last 10 or 12 years, meaning how we communicate, with whom we communicate, what we expect of the communication, the way we trust has all transformed forever. In addition to that, how we create, how we distribute, and how we consume information has changed forever. And as a result of that, every institution on this planet, forget just business, every institution on this planet and almost every human being on this planet has been impacted by the communications revolution. But you have to take it past business, because we're not just dealing with customer behavior, we're dealing with human behavior having changed. Customer is just one of the things we all do as humans, right? That's it. But it's human behavior that's changed, and that's what's fundamental to how customer engagement works on the business side. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about the business side, because that's what we're here to talk about. But the next question then becomes, all right, if human behavior's changed, and, you know, how has the customer part of that behavior changed? And that's what we're calling now the digital customer, right? A few years ago, it was called the social customer, but that's when social media was very popular. Now it's just a channel, right? Now it's a digital customer, and that means something in a number of ways. Now, because of my time constraints, I can only go over a little of this, right? But I'm going to start with this particular one. And by the way, you have access to the slides. I mean, you can have all of them. So I'm going to start right here with trust, right? Because that's the most fundamental transformation. So if you go back to 2000, Edelman Group created what's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And what that means is it asks the question, who is the source that you trust the most? In 2002, 2003, it was financial advisors, which obviously was the wrong people to trust, right? But in 2004, a new category emerged, and it was called a person like me. Now that meant not your spouse or your family, not your friends. It meant someone who you felt was like you, someone who you felt had the same interests that you had, right? Someone who you felt spoke to you in some way and meant something, and yet you never met them in your entire life. Right? So, for example, you go to any review site that you use. You know, it's funny, many years ago, I used to ask people who uses review sites, and then, you know, 1/10 of the audience would raise their hand. I don't bother to ask anymore, because everybody does. But here's the thing. You go to these review sites, and you're looking around for something, and you see 1 to 5 stars on the reviews, and you're filtering that 1 to 5 stars, and you're saying, okay, well, I'm looking for the best churros in Mexico City, right? And you're looking around, and what do you find, right? You say, okay, well, this says 5 stars. It says, but so it's 5-star churro, but the service is good. Then it says service is fantastic, churros are pretty good, and you know, it keeps going, and you're saying, okay, I'll check this one, I'll check this one, I'll check this one. Everyone at this table has a different filter system. Every single person, even though you might be looking at the same reviews. But here's the thing that's interesting about that. You're trusting the reviewer, and all you know is that the reviewer's email is like badfriedfood@gmail.com, right? So, but that's all you know about them. You only know their email address, right? You don't know anything else, right? But you trust them because you feel that they're like you. And that's the real value here, right? When it comes to peer trust. We're talking about peer trust. So, In 2004, peer trust shows up on the Edelman Trust Barometer, 23%, most trusted source. 2006, peer trust shows up this way. For the first time in history, a person like me is considered a, quote, credible, a believable spokesperson, meaning influencer, right? So for the first time, brand influencers are showing up as peers. Then, as we come to now, we see here it says 2014, but 2014, 15, 16, and 17, it's been between 82, maybe 83%. Peer trust is the most trusted source, meaning the most trusted source, the number one, right? So you have that now where what's believable when it comes to customers are they will trust those kind of people more than they trust any brand and what the brand says about itself. The numbers are there for that too. With Forrester, Gartner, they all do studies on this. And if you look at the brand trust numbers, the people say anywhere from like 10% to 53% is the highest they've ever seen when it comes to customer brand trust. But when you look at customer peer trust about brands, the lowest number I've ever seen is 73%, and the highest is 94%. So the difference is very clear. They trust their peers more than they trust the brands when it comes to the brand. Now the other side is this. Now yesterday, Javier poked at this one. He was right though. I did it again, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know, I keep forgetting it's the touchscreen. Okay. He poked at this one, and rightfully for the number. 94% of businesses think their customers are satisfied with the communications, 96% of customers aren't. Now that number is too high, and what Javier said is right. He said that if that was true of the business as a whole, there'd be a lot of businesses out of business, right? However, in principle, what it's saying is true, right? Meaning that customers do not like the communications they're getting from businesses, and businesses are refusing to even agree, refusing to believe that. But it is the case, and they have to start dealing with it because the impact will actually put businesses out of business over time. So the question is, what kind of strategy do you have to actually implement? What kind of programs? What do you have to do? Well, look, if we used to implement the idea of multi-channel strategy back in the day, many years ago, right? Multi-channel strategy said, okay, customers communicate on one or two channels that they love to communicate on. So we have to figure out what's the best one and optimize to that. But that's not how customers communicate, right? You know how we communicate? Dozens and dozens of channels. These devices, those devices have hundreds of channels on them. And we use them, and we're not sitting there thinking, okay, today I think I'll focus on this channel. Nobody does that. What you do is you pick it up and you start using something, and then you go to another one, and I'm going to show you an actual interaction between me and my niece, right, that will prove the case. This is pretty amazing. Okay, so when she was 18, my wife and I were going to buy her a laptop for her going to college and her 18th birthday. So on Twitter one day, I get this note, @PGreenby, I need your cell number, hashtag love my uncle, hashtag miss you guys. She's one of those kids, 130 characters of hashtags and 10 of actual note. So I give her my cell number on Twitter. I direct message her on Twitter. Then I didn't hear from her for a few hours, so I sent her a note on Facebook, which she was active at the time. I said, hey, do you want to talk during the week about the laptop? She goes, that sounds good. Then I wrote on Facebook, we really got to pay attention here, did you get my cell on Twitter? I DM'd you with the number. That's on Facebook. So that's 3 channels right there. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, cell number. But wait, gets better. She says, yes, I got your number. I'll text you so you have mine. And I wrote, got it. And then this discussion is the text where we're talking about when we're going to talk on Skype. Yeah. Right? And then we talked on Skype, and then we actually went to the store, channel number 6, right, and got the laptop. 6 channels in the space of 30 hours. Now, how many people here know the U.S. Medicare program? That's the health program for people over 65. Okay, just remember that. People say, well, you know, she's 18. She's a digital native. She's a millennial. She always is like that. I'm on Medicare, and I'm like that, right? So that's why we're talking. It's not a matter of generation anymore. It's just how we all communicate. It's every generation communicates. Look, the first way grandmothers start talking to their grandkids is on Skype, and then they go from there, right? That's how it works, right? They just keep going. So when we're building strategies, we have to build omni-channel strategies now. We're talking about 7, 8 different channels that our companies have to prepare for to communicate with our customers in order to meet the needs that the customers are demanding of us. This isn't like the customers are being polite and nice about it. These are baseline needs that we can communicate with them the way they want to communicate. But it goes further. And look, there are results, and you can see them here. Google found that if you're an omni-channel shopper, meaning using multiple channels to shop, your customer lifetime value is going to be 30% higher than if you just shop on one channel. And there's lots of other revenue numbers that you can look at. In the interest of time, I'll skip it. So that's the communication strategy. But now we have to look at the engagement and experience side of this whole thing. How am I doing, by the way? About 10 more minutes? 10 minutes. Okay. So I've spent a lot of time defining things because there's so much, things are so unclear. Everyone has mostly self-serving definitions of customer experience, customer engagement, CRM, et cetera, et cetera. CRM, as much as I wanted it to be much more over the many years I've been involved in this and the many years I fought for much more than just technology, is technology. That's what it's become, right? We didn't win that fight. We lost it. And in the meantime, when somebody says CRM, they mean the system they're using, right? That's what they mean. So this is the definition I've given CRM now. It's a little bit sloppy, I think, from my standpoint. It's long, but it fits. And customer relationship management is a technology and system that sustains sales, marketing, and customer service activities. It's designed to capture and interpret customer data, both structured and unstructured, and to sustain the management of the business side of customer-related operations. CRM technology automates processes and workflows and helps organize and interpret data to support a company in engaging its customers more effectively. When I used to build my other CRM definitions, I could memorize them. This is way too long, and I'm way too old to even try, right? I'll just read it. That's why I read it. But that basically is what it is now, and that's where it fits. It's an operational technology that's for customer facing, that fits in the systems, that fits in the larger ecosystem around customer engagement. It's a core. It's a core operational technology. It's gone from nice to have to need to have. All right, that's CRM. Now, then there's customer experience, which is the one that gets most confused with customer engagement. But that's something very different. There's actually 3 kinds of customer experience, but I'm only going to concentrate on this one, again, in the interest of time. There's customer experience, which is the bigger picture one. Then there's brand experience, which is different. And then there's customer experiences, which are consumable. Those are creative. You can create them, you can engineer them, and monetize those. That's like Disney. That's experiences, right? Those are monetized experiences. This is what I'm talking about, though. This is how does a customer feel about a company over time? How a customer feels about a company over time. Meaning, over a long time, I'm going to like you, I'm going to hate you, I'm going to love you, I'm going to change my mind about you, but you're going to do something bad, but because I like you, I'm going to let you off. You're going to do something bad because I hate you, I'm not letting you off, right? So, and then because you did something bad, I'm not going to like you as much as I used to, right? There's an interaction and interplay that goes on between these two, but it's ultimately how a customer feels about a company over time. I'll give you an example. I was a customer of Comcast, which is a cable company in the U.S., a big cable company in the U.S. that everyone hates, for 16 years. And I hated them all 16 years, right? And the only reason I didn't leave them, initially, I'm long gone from them now, but the only reason I didn't leave them initially was I'd have to change my email if I did. And that was hundreds of emails that I have to change, and I just didn't want to do it. And I stuck with a company I hated because it was the cost of switching, at least the emotional cost, and the time was way too much for me to want to do it. But I hated them. I always hated them. I liked the technology. It was pretty good. But everything else about them, I hated them. And by the way, this is everyone in the U.S. hates them. And it's still, they're a big company. So here's the thing. The thing that got me to leave was simple. They sent me an email one day, and the email said, we have an offer for you that you think we're going to love. And I liked the offer. So I tried to fill it out online, and I couldn't fill it quite out. So I called them, and they said, oh, that's not for you. That's for new customers. And I said, well, why'd you send it to me then? I've been your customer, and why isn't it an offer for me? I've been 16 years a customer, and I look in their books, I look extremely loyal. A premium customer, never missed a payment in 16 years. Everything about me is loyal looking, but I hated them, right? So that happens, and I say, give up on them. Then 3 days later, I get the exact same email, giving me the offer again. And that was it. I didn't care if I had to change my email. Now I'm a Verizon customer. And now I spent hundreds of hours talking to thousands of people about how crummy Comcast is, right? How bad they are, right? So unfortunately, they've got a disengaged anti-advocate with me. But that's customer experience is why I quit them. Now, if I liked them and they made that mistake, I would have given them a pass the second time too, but I didn't like them. See, when it boils down to all of this, and we'll get to customer engagement now to get ready to when it boils down to all of this, there's a very simple principle that guides everything, no matter how complex we think all of this is, and it is, because we're dealing at scale. There's a very simple principle that guides all of this. If a customer likes you and continues to like you, they'll continue to do business with you. And if they don't, they won't. And it's literally that simple. Now, it's complex to do something about it, but it's that simple. So then the question becomes, what's customer engagement? Well, go back to 2014 or so, it all of a sudden is becoming huge in the thinking, not the actions, but the thinking in the marketplace. And so I'm starting to see it everywhere in boardrooms. Studies are coming out all over the world that are saying customer engagement is one of the things that's top of mind in the C-level suite. You know, all of this is going on, and I'm investigating this a great deal. McKinsey came out with a number of reports saying the number one reason or the number 3 reason that people are doing this or thinking that is customer engagement. Then you see reports like this coming from they're a Salesforce consultancy, but they're now owned by IBM, right? Blue Wolf. 60% of their respondents of Salesforce customers said that customer engagement is top priority. This one, 84% says customer engagement will overtake productivity as the company's primary driver of growth. Now that means Microsoft customers would never say that. Salesforce customers would say that. But that number is so dramatically high, it's worth considering that engagement is being thought of as a driver as opposed to just an action, right? And that's a big difference. Then Gallup comes out with these numbers. 23% premium for fully engaged customers in share of wallet, profitability, revenue, relationship growth. All right, so let's get to what customer engagement is now to get into this. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you one thing about it that you have to really be clear on. Well, back up. One thing customer engagement isn't is a product of only passion. That's the best way to put it. I mean, a lot of people think customer engagement is this emotional interaction with your customers all the time. It's not. Delight isn't a necessary part of engagement. It's a part, but it isn't absolute, and it isn't the only thing you're aimed at. So customer engagement can be as simple as an example that several people here heard yesterday that I gave. I bought a refrigerator a few years ago, and it needed a water filter. And it had one, and I had to find a place where I could buy other ones. I found a site called fridgefilters.com. And all it does is sell water filters for refrigerators, thousands of them. And I bought 2, and then it said, do you want to be notified every whatever about getting more? And I said, yeah, every 6 months. So this is 9 years ago. So I've had 18 communications with this company. That's it. And here's what happened. Hi, time to buy a water filter. Click. Hi, pay for it. Click. The end. And then I get a notification saying it's shipped. Now, that's not exactly passionate, is it? Right? I love this company. I completely love this company. You know why? They do the one thing that I want as a customer. what I want, right? That's what they do. They do exactly what I want. I don't want delightful experiences. What I want from them is water filters and reminders. That's all. And I've had 18 total interactions the whole time, and I'm an advocate for them, and I've told thousands of people about them too. So I'm creating customers for them in other places all around the world. So that's right. That's the idea of engagement truly, right? Make sure that you can do to the best extent you can what you want. Now here's my actual definition. The ongoing interactions between company and customer offered by the company, chosen by the customer. All right. So I think given the time, I will close talking about this because I'm never going to get to the case study unless I can squeeze in and talk really fast. Obviously, the first part's pretty clear. Ongoing interactions. You don't have a one-time interaction with a customer and call that engagement, right? So the next question, though, offered by the company, chosen by the customer. Offered by the company is simple, really. Every company is born constrained. Every company is born limited, right? They're limited by regulation. They're limited by time. They're limited by budgets. They're limited by labor power. They're limited by all kinds of things, right? That from birth. And they have no option beyond that. It doesn't mean that they have nothing. It simply means that they have limits that they can go to, and they have how they allocate, and by regulation, things that they're limited by what they can actually do. Customers don't care about the limits that a company has. Not at all. What they care about is getting what they need from that company. Now, if the company's Citigroup and they have 200 million customers, customer one doesn't care about 199 million, et cetera, customers. They don't care about them either. They care about getting what they want from that company. So how do you deal with that? On the one hand, you have limits. On the other hand, the customer doesn't care. On the other hand, you have 200 million customers. On the other hand, they all have something that they want that's different from what someone else wants. Well, there's ways of doing it. Number one is you provide them with the one thing that makes them happy, right? Which is control over their choices, right? That's what the key is. It's nothing to do with anything else. Control over their choices. What do I mean by that? 7.5 billion people on the planet. There's one thing we all have in common. We all want to be happy. And on the journey to happiness, we want to be happy, right? And that means the happiness on the journey to happiness is control as much as we can of that journey, meaning we decide on a direction in life and we try to achieve it, and when it veers, we try to either bring it back or continue on veering, but it's our choice on how we do that. And it goes from being what I call self-interested, which is good, to selfish when you start interfering with other people's journeys. But in the meantime, it's control over that journey. That's control over the choices. That's chosen by the customer. What does that mean? I'll give you a very simple example. This is actually one that also people heard yesterday. I signed up for this bizarre website called Get Glue years ago. And Get Glue is like 10,000 people are watching this TV show. What are you watching? I have no idea why I signed up for this. I still don't. And I checked into something called There's One in Every Crowd, and I unlocked a Radiohead sticker. I hate Radiohead. I cannot stand Radiohead. This is absolutely accurate. I think they suck, right? So, and again, I'm not like stuck in classic rock because I'm an old guy, right? It's not like that. It's just I don't like them, right? So what I did is immediately quit the site. Immediately. That was it. This is done, right? So all the information they had of me, to their defense, is my email, nothing else. But there's one thing they could have done, one thing, and you can't answer because you were there, and you can't answer either, right? So one thing they could have done that would have made me potentially stay with the site. Does anybody have any idea what that would be? And the way they let me choose is give me a choice of 5 stickers, right? Jimi Hendrix, Lumineers, Bruno Mars, Radiohead, Aerosmith. And I would pick one, and I would be happy. And on the other hand, they had new data on me at that point, which Thunderhead will, I'm sure, highlight, right? So the question then, can I get to this? 5 more minutes?
You changed it yourself.
No, it's okay. I actually want to go here.
How much?
Do I have any time?
3 minutes?
I will do it in 3 minutes. A minute at a time. All right. So the question then becomes, on engagement, if that's true, if you give the customers a choice, you can operate within your limits, but give them choices, and of course that would have cost that site nothing to do. And even with that limited data, what do you have to do as a company to prepare to do all this, right? So there's 2 or 3 things. And one, we've talked about a number of these things. There's experience, there's priorities, there's expectations, there's costs. This is an important one because this is where you operate in your limits. You have to understand the full what you have to do is you have to plan for what would look like a full ecosystem of opportunity for a customer, complete, regardless of cost, initially. And then start narrowing what you can and what you can't do. You can't provide a complete ecosystem even if you'd like to. You don't, first, internally you can't, even with partners you can't, in terms of what kind of cost and effort it would take you to do. So you have to figure out what your limits are and understand you can't give everything to every customer, nor can you give everything to all of your customers either. So you have to set your limits and understand that. Number 2, though, is within that context is make sure that the actual things you do offer impact the largest group of customers you can possibly impact. And there are ways to go about it that we unfortunately don't have the time to do. That's on the concern side. On the preparation side, the most important thing is make sure you build the right culture. And the right culture in this case is what I call a customer-engaged culture. Now, that is the same as what Silvana calls a customer-centric culture. But I'm actually distinguishing between customer-centrism and customer engagement here. And in this way, but again, she's talking about a customer-engaged culture. Customer-centric, to me, stems from a story I'll tell you about Ryanair as I get ready to close here. 2013, Ryanair had a significant downturn and actually issued 2 profit warnings, and the shareholders went crazy. They were putting all kinds of pressure on Michael O'Leary, the CEO of Ryanair. And Ryanair implemented a customer-centric program that really was just the things that most other airlines already do, but for them, of course, was customer-centric because that's not their model. And with things like, instead of charging you the minute you want to change, even if you want to change your flight the same day they would charge you, now they give you 24 hours to make the change without charge. You can bring 2 bags on board instead of 1. Things which you would expect of every airline, but not them, right? So they did a number of those things, and it was really beneficial, and it worked. And so Michael O'Leary made this actual statement, the CEO of Ryanair. If I had known being nice to customers would work so well, I would have done it sooner. He actually said that, right? So, but here's the thing. He did customer-centric things. But his commitment is to the shareholders, not to the customers, not to value for the customers. Meaning, if cutting the customers would have benefited the shareholders, I would have done that too, right? That could be reversed in a day. But when you're customer engaged, the absolute core of your business is mutual value. And I know you guys believe in that. I know that you're strong believers in that, which is why you have the programs you do. Its core belief is mutual value for the customer and the company. So that is the number 1 thing that you have to build into culture. And that's when you're going to be customer engaged and actually build it. Again, there's all kinds of other things which I can't go into. On execution, we discussed some of it. The omni-channel side when it comes to communication strategy is important because ultimately if I say to you, I want to email, I want to get your address, I email you, I need your address, please text me. I expect to get a text message that says, here's my address. And that's just the ordinary behavior. I don't need to be delighted. I need your address. And the idea is the foundational piece of execution is this. And then I'll close. Every study out there that looks at interactions says between 90 to 95% of all interactions are nothing more than queries. Just questions. Very simple things that need to be done. Those basic functions have to be taken care of first and foremost. Absolutely the first thing. Forget delight until delight's necessary. The most necessary thing is make sure the basic things are taken care of because there's no customer expects failure in the basic things. None. I stayed at a hotel once called the Hudson Hotel in New York where I literally, the hotel was the coolest looking hotel. It was a Philip Stark building, had a minimalist bar. The drinks were insanely expensive, 3 drinks, $100, right? You know, but hippest bar in New York City. There was European retro was the style. That's what they actually called it. And it was like, I call it Euro fake because they actually called the elevators lifts in New York, right? In New York, you call them elevators, not lifts, right? So, right, but it was like all this coolest place. You go to the room, lay on the bed. I turn to the right, I break my nose. I turn to the left, I'll break my nose. I want to work, I have to sit at the edge of the bed at a desk in front of me. Then I can look straight into the bathroom with a translucent curtain that's right there, and the TV's up here because they don't want, like a hospital, because they don't want to take up space. In other words, they didn't even meet the minimum function of a hotel room, right? Which meant dysfunctional. The rest of the coolest stuff doesn't matter. That's what I mean by my slogan for that is keep the ordinary ordinary. That is the foundational piece of customer engagement. That's when it comes to execution especially. So with that, I'm just going to let it go right now. But so thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm around, I presume. So, and I will hand it over to Thunderhead immediately here. All right, to these 2 wonderful guys from Thunderhead.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Oh yeah, hold on. Good point.
Sharon now?
Let me,